Good evening, everybody, and welcome to this webcast on CIOB. I'm very pleased to welcome you to the event, and can I introduce Alan Crane and Amy Goff, who are in London and going to be speaking to you later on in the day. Say hello, and Alan and Amy.
Hi everyone, good evening.
Hi everyone, good evening.
Okay, well, thank you for taking the time to join this webinar. And we're here to talk to you about the CIOB project that is now in the implementation phase. I'm going to run through a fair number of slides, and I hope you managed to keep up with me on this. So anyway, let's have a look at our agenda and what we're going to cover today. We'd like to talk about where the project came from, what we learned from members when we talked to them, and what CIOB will deliver. And I'm sure you joined this webinar because you want to find out what it means for you in particular. Hope you all watched the 5-minute film that captures our vision for CIOB. This is a great introduction with messaging to listen to ahead of the presentation. It's worth watching and coming back to this presentation if you haven't yet seen it. So if you've already seen it once, go and have another look at it and just sort of check out what we're saying today is what's in that presentation as well. Anyway, throughout the presentation, you can send questions in if you have a Google account. After our presentation, your questions will be answered. You need to click on the box with 9 squares, top left, if you'd like to ask a question. So I hope that's clear. So now let's go back to the beginning. What was our starting point? The project started with a concern that we weren't engaging our members on a local level in the way they wanted us to. That concern was a consultation with members and staff. It's certainly the largest strategic project we've ever undertaken, and in my 16 years at the CIOB, the most consulted on change we have ever proposed. Now, this project is critical because it needs to align with our corporate plan and what we're trying to achieve in the future. CIOB has influenced our thinking and what we intend to deliver up to 2020. And our corporate plan, has aspirations of growth, future-proofing the Institute. We're very keen to ensure that our members can progress earlier on in their careers and therefore hopefully bring down the average age of a member, which I have to say is currently 46. And if you look at other professions, chartered members are in their sort of late 20s, early 30s. So there's a lot we can do, I think, to try and change that profile. But above all, it needs to be about being relevant to the industry and ensuring that that relevance comes forward in the recognition we deserve. We have plans for a new academy, plans for extended training. There's an awful lot, though, going into that corporate plan up to 2020. Now, we were fortunate to have a working group of all active members, which included past presidents, a trustee, branch chairs, a Novus representative, and someone from the UK and Ireland time zone. In fact, it was the chair. And our working group were committed to making sure that they consulted thoroughly to all members from the outset. And once plans were proposed, making sure we communicate these changes widely and transparently, which is why we're here today. This project, up to early this year, had been confidential due to the sensitivities surrounding our regional staff. And anybody who's been involved in employing people will have a good appreciation of what that means. Now I'm going to hand over to Amy, who's going to talk about the process and how we consulted. Amy.
Thanks, Chris. So the next slide that you can see now, how we consulted. We actually appointed an independent research agency called Ashford Communications to help us with the research. It was the working group's decision to do that, and we were adamant that right from the start that we would certainly members, full members, through an independent agency. They do a lot of work with other professional bodies, so they were the first port of call that we applied. Now, the research itself took a number of different forms over the last 2 years. We did 3 member surveys and got a good response back from that. Around 10% for each of those surveys responded, and any professional research consultancy would see that 3% would be the average of where you can benchmark or base any decisions on the outcome. So we were very pleased, and working with were very pleased with. We also consulted with 3 levels of our governance structure, and that was the time zone levels that we have, and our branches report to those time zones. We also consulted with our members forum, which is our trustees sounding board. And our composition is a branch network across the world. So that was a further 3 times that we consulted with them. We also consulted with our staff. We felt it was very, very important to engage with the local staff on a global level in terms of what their feedback was, what they're experiencing. We also provide a SWOT analysis. They also provide us data on the event attendance, so CPD events, networking events. Really important to understand the level of people and members that we're getting and non-members at our event. And so they looked at the work, the hours that they worked by activity. So we had a lot of data that Ash audited, and it was extremely useful, the information that was sent to us from the staff. And there was a lot of hours that were going on supporting committees at the local level. And as we go through this presentation, we'll see how we've rearranged and refocused some of that staff focus on outcomes rather than managing committees. So what we have here is some headline findings of the research. And you can read CIOB products and services needed to be relevant and accessible to all members. That was crucial to this project, really. Certainly we can improve on a number of areas. One of the points there, only 48% felt that their branch effectively represents them. That's quite a high, we felt again that could do improvement. 80% for roles to be elected, and this is again something we thought later in the presentation. We're going to implement elections. So again, a really high percentage of those responded to the survey. 42% would consider joining a local community. The working group felt that that was fantastic, and again, one of the key points for the project is to engage, to improve engagement with members, and hopefully make them join the committees and become active. Members valued local events and networking and CPD. I mean, this is always the top benefit, really, those 3 points of joining membership. So really good that we valued those. And we certainly need to have a mix of delivery, certainly on events and CPD. So there's a lot of activities that we're going to. Obviously, we're doing a webinar this evening, and we've done a few more prior to this. We'll be doing more webinars. Maybe CPD virtually as well as face-to-face meetings. Many members feel that we're too far away from them. And again, that goes back to the mix of delivery when we're presenting events to members. So what members told us, you can see there on the table, there's a CIOB column. So what Ashridge did was benchmark 2 other professional bodies. Now they weren't, it was very confidential. They weren't going to tell us who these organisation A or organisation B is. I'm sure you can guess who they could possibly be. But when you look at those figures compared to the other organisations, 74% is extremely high for our members not attending a virtual meeting, and that's never attended. So really high rate. And then this table shows, it's not a coincidence, sorry, that we're on 74% again. But what this table shows is that who would recommend the CIOB to others, to colleagues and associates. And in isolation, 74% actually would be quite good. But when compared to those two other organisations, it's fairly low. So what this is showing us is really that there is clear need to improve certainly some of our events and the attendance, and also our engagement. I'm going to have a hand over to Alan Craig now, just to talk to you through some of the work that we've done.
So, from that summary of the research and the feedback and consultation questionnaire that went out to every member of the Institute, there are a number of things that came clearly from it. First of all, the current model, the current structure, is not enabling us to engage properly, efficiently with all of our members. Members who need support, and they're certainly not receiving support that is relevant to wherever they are, both physically and wherever they are in their career, and what their development needs are. It was also clear that whilst we provided a range of services, whether they be PPD or other products, there was a need to improve the quality and accessibility of that. Most of what we produced is aimed primarily at small local meetings, where on average, and you will have seen that from the other statistics, on average, less than 10 or 15% of the membership actually ever attend. And the administration feedback, both from members and from the staff, showed that an inordinate amount of time was actually taken up with taking notes and minutes from meetings, at the expense, at the cost of organising events, providing information to members that they need and where they need it. The other thing which came clearly out of the research, and it's something which those of us who travelled, whether it's just in the UK and Ireland or in fact across the world, one of the commonest complaints that we get from fellow members is the lack of recognition of our qualifications, of our designations, and of the CIOB by a combination of governments, whether those are national or regional or local governments, or employers. A key theme that comes out from aspects of the research. So, next slide, please. It was clear we needed a new structure. And the proposed structure, which we'll outline in some detail, was formed around local and regional hubs. On the basis of that extensive research, Ashridge, in fact, not only set the questions that were asked of members, but they then did a detailed analysis of the feedback results, the responses to the questionnaire. And from that analysis, they listed 18 key factors which they felt the working group needed to address in order to achieve a one CIOB that was fit for the future and provided the right level of service to its members. Those proposals and the recommendations as to how we tackle those issues then went to members forum. Prior to that, we talked to time zone representatives, time zone meetings, some meetings of members, and we put together, as I say, 18 recommendations for action. Members forum were not totally happy with some of that, and in fact their main concern related to the proposal that instead of centres and branches we have a two-tier local and regional hub structure, then linking through to Members Forum itself. The proposals, the recommendations were then put to the Board of Trustees the day after, in fact, the Members Forum meeting, together with the concerns that the Members Forum had raised. Trustees in July 2015 approved of the 18 recommendations, and indeed a number of those are already in the process of implementation. And as Chris said, a lot of that fed directly into the corporate plan for 2020, for example. The two areas where the Board of Trustees did not approve more than the principle, or approve the principle of local and regional hubs, but they wanted us to look at the detail, the distribution, the geographic distribution, and the structure of the committees related to those. We invited UK and Ireland time zone to join our group and put together, which then group put back out in a further questionnaire to the members in October 2015. They formulated the 3 questions as the basis of that questionnaire, which would deal with the questions that have been raised. You'll see from the figures on this slide that there was a very significant percentage of members in favour of what we were then proposing. Over 70% felt that it would improve delivery. 6 out of 10 agreed that it would provide more and better representation of members' requirements. 2/3 agreed that it would help members engage better with the Institute, with CIOB. As one always gets in these sorts of things, there were 20% or thereabouts who neither agreed nor disagreed, people who either couldn't make up their minds or sat on the fence or whatever. And significantly, only 10% either disagreed or strongly disagreed with what was being recommended. So a very clear endorsement of what was a correct way forward. We had, and this reinforced it, we had from very early stages, in fact, based upon the results of the first questionnaire, we'd adopted in the working group a sort of mantra. That mantra was that we need, now calling one CIOB, we needed an institute, an organisation that was available, accessible by all of our members, and provided access to the same high quality, relevant products, services, events, and CPD. No argument that we were providing some good stuff, but not enough, and not enough of the right quality. And those products, those services, they had to be relevant to wherever our members are, both geographically and wherever they are in terms of their career stage and their development. And particularly bearing in mind that those needs will differ not just on a geographic basis, but more significantly in terms of people's current position. And that the whole aim of this is to maintain levels of competence. And competence is something you don't just achieve once at that qualification stage, at that achieving chartered membership stage. It's something you have to continually work at and maintain. And that's also key to getting recognition of our qualifications, which I mentioned earlier on. Employers, government, and so forth will only give you recognition if you can demonstrate that the people that you want them to recognise are competent in what they're doing. So, what will it deliver? It will deliver a new local administrative and member structure, local and regional level. And I stress administrative. There's a lot of misunderstanding about the purpose of the hubs and their location. The local hubs are very simply administration centres. Centres where staff will be located to provide link with members to understand and put together plans related to programs that members want that are relevant to that particular area. They've been established very simply on the basis of postcodes in terms of Europe and membership concentrations overseas. They are administration centres. They are not the places where members need to go for meetings, for networking, or any other purpose. Members can, will, should decide where they want to meet, for what purpose, whether it's face-to-face networking, whether it's face-to-face delivery, whether it's venues where a group of people can receive online, streaming, virtual communications. Their decision. It's where the staff will ensure that the consistency and the high quality is delivered locally and in particular through things like CPD. And part of that is identifying with the hub committees local presentations, which we've relied on an enormous amount in the past, and some of it very good. It's actually helping to capture that high quality stuff that we already deliver on a local basis, capturing it, videoing it, quality, presenting that, and making that available, something that perhaps is produced in Oxford, making that available throughout the United Kingdom, or indeed, if it's relevant, across the world for other members, rather than only in the past being available to the 20, 30, 40 people who may have turned up at that particular event, excuse me. It's about developing with members new ways of delivering those things. It's about ensuring that we're properly equipped at an administrative level with the communications media that we need. And there will also be staff with the particular task of building on the relationship that members have with employers, with universities, with educationists, and with government at whatever relevant level. Those introductions, that knowledge has to come from members, but staff whose purpose, whose main role will then be to follow through on that, to engage with those employers and government agencies and so forth, and achieve the level of recognition and continuing development of those relationships that we so badly need. At that point, I'm sorry, it's me, let's continue with me. So what's in it for members? It's about better representation. It's about your committee members being elected by you. It's about those more accessible services and products, as I've said on several occasions. It's about more flexible ways of staying up to date. We have a major program already underway to equip the administration centres and through that the local hubs and regional hubs with up-to-date, future-proofed communications equipment so that we can access, members can access, so that members can get together in relative terms where they want to. It's about providing better core CPD that's free to members and responds to those varying needs that I've talked about several times. And doing that in a way that is responsive, that is continually reviewed and updated and enlarged. And it's about more relevant, timely, engaging communications. And not least, it's about your OB, your professional body, building that recognition, that crucial recognition across the whole spectrum for the benefit of all members. So, a new structure to deliver more accessible, higher quality, more engaging one CIOB. That isn't going to be achieved with simple cosmetic changes. What we need is a real change to enable us to evolve future generations. And this is about the future. It's about the future for our current members, but as importantly, our future members. A way of reaching out to those people that we need to bring in to the organisation for obvious purposes. But for example, Chris mentioned right at the start, the average age of our membership is actually increasing by over 11 months each year. So it's to put in place that new local and regional hub structure that will help us with that delivery. And hopefully you can get a proper view of that local CIOB hub structure. You'll see that first of all, the new structure has got 3 tiers in it, as opposed to the current 4-tier structure. You'll see, for example, if you just take Europe, there are projected 29 local hubs making up that structure. The thing to be very clear about is that at the moment reflects a small number of factors. It reflects the simple geographic spread of chartered and potential chartered members, and administration centres that make, from an administrative perspective, in terms of delivery, communications, and so forth. It is also in line with the corporate growth strategy. A working group was looking at that in parallel with, and interestingly, it was probably no coincidence that most of the recommendations come together. It's obvious that our best potential for membership growth is going to be relative to areas where there is future economic development, not just in the United Kingdom or Europe, but across the world. And that tends to be pretty much related to cities. So it's a combination of where people currently are, where the growth potential probably is, and where the communication systems are best located. That will change, that will develop. There is no doubt that even if we look at this chart in a year's time, there will probably be 1 or 2 differences. In fact, in the last 6 to 7 weeks, since we first drew this up ready for the roadshows, there's already been 3 changes. Ireland's view, members in Ireland changed their view as to how many hubs they felt was appropriate. Previously, they'd said for a number of reasons they wanted 1, they then changed their mind, went to 2. Wales, interestingly, went in the opposite direction. Previously, they've been indicating that given the geography, they wanted 1 in the north and 1 in the south of Wales. They then changed their minds, rethought it. We finished up with 1. In Australia, we got some information from our colleagues, our members in Australia, which indicated that we missed the development potential, in fact, actual development going on in Queensland, and therefore we added in Brisbane. So there will be facility for, there will have to be facility for regular review and adding appropriate new local hubs, or indeed this week we are discussing with one hub perhaps an alternative location because it doesn't appear to work geographically to the extent we thought given the spread of members. So it'll take time to bed down, it will change, it will evolve, but it's a structure that can evolve naturally without major upheaval because, I stress again, these are administration centres and not places where people have to go. At that point, I will try and explain some of the key activities that will be provided for members, services for members from the hubs. The first one, of course, is we will need each of those local committees to develop a business plan for events and other activities. Obviously, the basis of that will be core events, whether they be networking events, whether they be CPD events, whether they be dinners, for example, or events where potential employers, government officials and so forth can be invited and developed on a rolling 12-month program. Those local events and the planning of that must, of course, include the provision for contingency. Gone are the days when we can accurately project what it is that we need to do, never mind what we want to do, on a rolling 12-month basis. And I would expect every one of those business plans, the committees, to be advising staff to build into those plans provision for things that we don't currently know about. The structure of the plan, the content of the plan is for members. The structure of the plan and calculating the finance and other facilities you need with it, that's for staff. It's also important that we have an inbuilt mechanism for measuring performance against those plans and reporting back. Hopefully all success, but there'll be some obviously in the other direction. The hub will ensure that the CPD we deliver, the core, is better, more content, more availability, primarily through the CPD portal, and that's already underway. And they will also ensure that the mix is right between delivery online, virtual events, and real events. Next factor is about this key issue, which, yes, maybe I've gone on about a lot, but about the promotion of CIOB. When we're promoting CIOB, we're promoting ourselves. We as members are promoting ourselves, our interests. Our interests are the CIOB's interests. That engagement with employers, government, education is absolutely crucial. And a key part of that will be demonstrating that through professional development, we are maintaining and we have the requisite level of competence that's appropriate for the people that we want to recognise, our qualifications, our skills, our institute. On top of that, there's a key area of communications. We have not been particularly good in the past about communicating with members. We've done a lot of it. I'm sure lots of you will agree with me. I get bombarded with emails from the CIOB under various guises. The problem with most of it is, the first thing you see when you pick up a computer is CIOB and a logo. And there's not the thing that says, oh, I must open that. And that's because most of our communications have been too general and have tried to encompass every level of interest amongst members. We've already set about and underway segregating regional from local, from national, from international, and from general institute communications, services, benefits, and so forth. So that the intention is, and we're employing specialist copywriters, I think they're called, to make sure that the relevant information is there when you first look at that piece of information coming to you to make you click on it. Already, and that's been underway now for a few months, already there is a significant uplift. I'm told it's between 15 and 20% in terms of the communications that are by members. At least we're getting something right, and that, think of it, will have a logarithmic effect. And a key part of that will be learning from that, from getting information from our members about local event preferences, and then using insight from all of those activities and communicating back on an annual basis to all of our members, a follow-up to the surveys that we've carried out, the questionnaires that we've carried out, so that we maintain the topicality of what we're doing. So that on an annual basis, we have a proper professional review. And the working group will stay in place for a period of time to follow through on those reviews, to follow through on that feedback. We have started out on a major change, as we've said. we've got to continue. We've got to continue with that. We've got to continue with that growth. At this stage, I'm going to hand over. He's going to take us through the structure for those hubs and hub committees.
Thanks, Alan. A lot of really interesting stuff there. So the last couple of slides then, we've heard about the why, we've heard about the what, and now it's about who will actually deliver this. So obviously we have an existing branch committees and centre committees. And what we're looking to do is introduce, as Alan said, these local and regional hub committees. So first and foremost then, we've got hub regulations. Now, those of you that are listening that are on the existing branch and centre committees, you'll know that there's a document that we use, and it's called Best Practice Guidelines for the local level. And they're exactly that, and they're interpreted as guidelines, which in turn causes inconsistency across the world. So what the working group were, again, very, very clear on when they were putting their recommendations to the trustees was that we needed some rules at a local level. We needed the committees to have a consistent nature and have these regulations. So the type of thing that will feature in those regulations will be around the term of office, these committees and members, the tenure, the composition. Will be very similar to the other governing committees that we have. There are strict governance rules, so why can't that be implemented on a local and regional level? So it will certainly cover members forum, regional and local. It will also feature the election assessment and process. You remember the early slides where I talked about the research. There was 84% of the members responding to that survey, or the surveys, because there's multiple. They wanted their members within committees to be elected. So really important that we deliver on that. Looking at the establishment of the local hub committee then, there will certainly be chartered members, and there'll be 6 elected committee members within a local hub. It's really important that they are chartered members. They are throughout the other governance boards and committees, so why not continue that at a local level? Again, really important that these are role models. These are our leaders at a local level, so they should be chartered. After all, we are a chartered institute building. We're certainly going to aim to deliver them online. That's the best way and most efficient way that you can conduct an election. And we've actually recently we went out to tender for organisations that could help us manage these elections, and certainly online. And we've chosen a company called My Voice, and we're going to work with them very closely over the next few months to implement the European region local hub elections. Now, there's no requirement for AGMs going forward, unless there's local law or regulations that require that, and certainly for anyone that's listening perhaps overseas, so in our China territories, the company registration that we have there means that we do have to have an AGM. It's a legal requirement. So other than that, and in some other pockets of the world, there's no need to hold AGM. So why not put the funds that were part of the business plan for AGMs to better use, have events, have CPD, have some networking events around that. Term of office, you can see there that the chair and the vice chair will sit for 2 years. Now, they are the only official roles of the committee. Other roles, so the other 4 posts, will be champions. And again, in those hub regulations document that I talked about, there'll be some job descriptions in there just to really focus the committee. And we're looking at job descriptions like a policy champion or a communications champion or events champion. There'll be about 8 to 10 of those in the regulations, and it's up to the committee to determine which they would like to put in post. And that's relevant to cultural issues probably, and what best suits your area. All the other committee members will sit for 3 years. And really important, this is the first time that we mentioned it during the presentation, but Novus plays a big part in this new structure. and these new activities. It will certainly mirror the structure, local, regional and members forum structure that you saw earlier, that Alan was talking about. And they will have Novus representatives in each of those different tiers. Really important that we've got that younger generation, that voice and the understanding and the vision coming from them. So essential that Novus will be co-opted. So a local Novus group will be co-opted onto the local hub committee, and they'll sit for 2 years. Now, for the initial local hub committee, it's really important that we have continuity. So what we're suggesting is the chair sits for 2 years, the vice chair sits for 2 years, but again, succession planning was one of the points that the trustees wanted us to work on, or the working group to work on more. And this is what we're putting in place, is that the chair will then move up into, the vice chair will move up into the chair role for a further 2 years. So a lot of commitment there for that role. That's 4 years of hard work. So a really important role for the local committee. 2 members will sit for 1 year and 2 members will sit for 3 years. This is so not everyone changes or comes to the end of their tenure at the end of 2 years. So there is a staggered approach there, so not everyone's going to drop off. And I mentioned about the co-opting. So Novus, a mandatory co-opt onto the committee, but then there's 2 other opportunities to co-opt members on. Now, one of those could be a past chair, and that's just an example. If the chair, with all that existing knowledge, decides not to go for election or chooses not to, then they could, the committee that's been elected could, decide to co-opt him or her. And co-option, for those of you that don't know, needs to be a specific purpose for that. So an example there would be maybe an annual dinner. This person, you needed someone that has the connections, the contacts and the network to get people to attend or sponsor or speak. And they would be on the committee for a specific year or time period. So that could be a year, that could be 2 years. But that's the key criteria for co-opting members. Now, we're really insistent on this purpose that existing committee members are most welcome to apply for these new local hub committees. Obviously, we're trying to look to get some fresh blood into the mix, but we don't want to lose that knowledge and that experience that we've got. In terms of timing then for these elections, what we're looking at is not to clash with any other elections of the Institute, and that's certainly not clashing with the trustee elections that we hold. So what we're aiming for is around August, September, to come out, start talking to you and promoting expressions of interest and calling for those expressions of interest. They'll come with that expression of interest, they'll come with a guidance notes and an application form, so you know exactly what you're signing up for. And then come November, December, we'll introduce and start talking to those elected committee members and give an induction process. And then that means that by the 1st of January, they should be ready, fully ready to deliver the 2017 business plan going forward. Now, I must stress that's for the Europe regional hub local committees. For overseas, and again, we may have some overseas members listening in this evening, the elections will take place early in 2017, and we'll announce the dates in due course. So again, who is going to be delivering this amongst the members and the volunteers and active members that we have? We've got a few staff changes as well. Now, we've been in consultation for the Europe region for quite some time. And what we're looking to do and have already implemented is a host of different job roles. We have development managers that are really going to focus on the employer engagement, recruitment, retention, looking at the finances and growth for the Institute. As Alan and Chris have mentioned, external engagement is a key part of this project and an aim that we have to deliver on. And that local contact is crucial, and they will link to head office, either staff or consultants that we'll look to put in post there to help engage with local governments. And that's across the world, not just in the UK with devolved nations. Reporting to the development managers then will be member services and events coordinators And that's really says what it is. I mean, we do about 500 events on an annual basis in the CIOB. So it's crucial that we have dedicated staff to look after those activities. So they'll be putting on quality CPD. That could be webinars, that could be face-to-face, networking events, site visits, you name it. And then also be the first point of contact for member inquiries at a local level. I mean, we have a good department at head office that looks after membership inquiries and giving advice for routes to membership. But these would be trained professionals at a local level if non-members needed to talk through either becoming a member or progressing on to chartered members. And then the final point there is that the staff do report to head office and not committees. We found in the past, and this could relate to the fact that we've had a lot of our staff in post for many, many years, and their job descriptions prior to this were around PAs to committees. But certainly going forward, they've got key job descriptions, key targets and activities to meet for the best of the Institute.
Okay, well,
back to you.
Okay, well, thank you for listening, everybody. We now have time for some questions. Okay, so questions from the audience. We have a couple.
So the first question, how can there be physical meeting in countries where there are no CIOB centres or representatives?
Okay.
How can there be meetings where there are no centres or local hubs?
I thought I'd explain. The local hubs are where the members' services and coordinators will be, the development managers will be, where they're based providing the service. Members meet where members need to meet. Members meet where members want to meet. Members continue to meet in the places where they've met in the past. The whole purpose of this is to actually improve the administration of that and to make better things available to more members. So wherever you need to meet, I've used an analogy which got me into trouble in one of the road shows. If the best place from a communications perspective to receive an online or video transmission is the back room in Joe's bar, then fine, go to the back room in Joe's bar. The administration people will arrange for that to be streamed into you. That's for you to choose as members.
I think if we do want to meet with other members in a locality where there isn't a formal hub, then I think the issue is to contact the hub that's responsible for that locality and see whether something can be done in terms of organising something where there is a chance to bring a few people together. And I think that's the benefit of the new structure, is that there's a little bit more freestyling available than perhaps there might have been in the past, which was probably a little bit overly formal, overly procedural. I think the scope for some freestyling will mean that we can try things out. If it doesn't work, we'll try something else.
I was up in Scotland the day before yesterday. If I'd spotted something being organised by the Edinburgh hub or the Glasgow hub, even though my hub is Maidstone in Kent, I think, then I would go along to that hub event. There's no restriction. There's no restraint.
We've got virtual technology as well.
Yes.
So you can be wherever you want to be to tap into our new quality CPD.
Or pull it down to your own lounge.
Okay, well, let's take another question. How can our individual roles at HQ help support the development of the new hubs? Well, I think that's quite simple, really. I mean, I think everybody who's working in HQ's got a part to play in delivering one CIOB, whether it's from the point of view, for example, of the quality assurance processes on the development of the CPD, to the work we're doing on enhancing recognition whether we're doing it at institute level, qualification level, or skill or certification level. So there's an awful lot of work that we've got to do, which will give the hubs far more tools to work with in terms of being able to deliver at a local level. But I think one of the core parts has to be around the CPD, both in terms of the quality of CPD, enabling the local hub areas and the committees to ensure that CPD meets a threshold standard, which is considered suitable perhaps to be fed into the wider network, but also making sure that the production quality clearly has a stamp that says this is CIOB CPD. And I think that's very important. It's a bit like, for example, the BBC News. There's a great theme through all of that. It doesn't really matter where you are in the world, whether you're in the UK or overseas. The BBC News seems to have a common theme that you can recognise what it is. And I'd certainly like to, at our level, at our scale, make sure our CPD and the way we produce it and present it has a commonality that members can latch onto and say, yes, I recognise what this is. Okay, I've got another comment here that says I'm not hearing the woman talking, probably because of network problems. I think it might have been due to adverse feedback, and I hope that you managed to hear Amy much more clearly in the second half of her presentation. Any more questions? We've had a couple of other questions emailed in. We'll cover those off, Amy.
Who sits on the regional hub, and what is the hierarchy on the regional hub? Okay,
Amy, do you want to pick that one?
Yeah, I can, and I hope everyone can hear me. Sorry if we cut out or it was hard to hear me earlier. But who sits on the regional hub will certainly be the local hub chair or their representative. Plus, it'll be member proportionate as well to make up that connection. They'll also, regionally, they'll meet twice a year, and then they'll come together again at Members Forum in the middle of the year.
And the Members Forum representation will, of course, come from the regional hubs.
Yep.
And that membership will again be proportionate. So depending on the size of the region, there will be between 1 and 3 representatives for each regional hub on the Members Forum, plus a Novus co-optee. As Amy said earlier on, Novus will be present at every level in the structure, a Novus representative, that is. And in addition, there will be from each region what Members Forum are calling a Congress representative. So someone who is not on the regional committee, but who is elected by members from that region to ensure that there is potential for different views to be brought to the most senior member level part of the organisation outside of the Board of Trustees.
Right, another question there. Will there be one staff member per hub, or do staff have to share their time between 2 hubs? Amy, would you like to pick that one up, please?
Yeah, of course. It's a variety actually, and again, of course, it depends where they're located. There's some hubs that actually we won't be in a position to recruit for those hubs, and that's the election and the members of staff until we built up a base of chartered members. But in terms of the existing, certainly Europe. It's a mixture really. They could have anything from 1 local hub to 3, and of course they'll have a development manager that will then oversee maybe 2 or 3, possibly 4 members of staff with up to 8 local hubs.
Perhaps I can explain a little bit more detail on that. The question about not all hubs having a member of staff. A number of the hubs across the world that we're proposing are very firmly based upon growth potential. So you have hubs with as few as 40, 50, 60 chartered members. and until they grow in size to an extent, then they will be served by adjacent hubs that have got larger staffing and spare staff capacity. The key recommendation of the working group from the outset, and as a member I'm delighted to be able to confirm to Chris and Amy and the other staff members, was whatever we come up with as an institute, we have got to be absolutely committed putting in place not just the right numbers of staff, but staff with a broader, wider degree of skills and knowledge and specialisms to suit the new requirement. And I can assure you that that is being met, and Amy and her team are a substantial way along the process of putting those people in place.
Good. Okay. Well, we've got another question coming in, and this says, what will happen to the existing branch and centre committee members? Can they be transferred to the hub committee, or must they stand for election? Well, I think that follows in line with the question I was asked, I think, down in Cardiff at the start of the process, when someone said, will existing committee members get preference? And I think the short answer to that is yes, if they get elected. The longer question is, and I think Amy covered it in her bit, that it may be possible that some people may get co-opted to do a particular job for a particular length of time. But I think the reality is that we're going to a process now of elections, open elections, and I think if people who are involved in existing committees and centres want to be part of the new hub committees, they're going to have to put themselves forward to the election process, and that means going through the nominations process first, as we do for trustees, and if then selected to go forward onto the ballot for election to hub committee. So there's no automatic assurance that anybody currently involved in a branch or centre committee will get an automatic place on the new hub group. So I think it's and it's important to make that very clear at the start. Have you got anything to add, Amy or Alan?
Is working up with Samantha Teague, our legal counsel within CIOB, the detail of those rules, regulations, procedures, the electoral procedures and so forth. One of the things that's come out, which we're discussing at the moment, for example, Amy explained that in order to have a situation where the hub committee doesn't fall off the edge of the cliff every 3 years, the first time around, a third of the membership will be asked to only serve 1 year. One of the things we're looking at is then saying, well, fine, if those people have been through nominations committee and selected for the ballot and been elected, then at the next election, i.e. which will be immediately after the year, they will automatically have a place on the ballot. They'll still have to be elected, but they'll automatically have a place on the ballot. We're looking at that.
Okay. A question from Nigeria. I'm based in Nigeria, however, Nigeria is not part of the country with local hubs. Are there criteria for Nigeria, for instance, to become one? If yes, what are they?
At the moment, given the quantity of members, chartered members in that region of West Africa, the Nigerian people resident in Nigeria or working in Nigeria, because it isn't just where people's permanent home is, it's where people are actually currently active in the industry, that will be served by the administration hub from Ghana until we get to the point where the membership growth in Nigeria itself can justify citing of administration people in Nigeria.
And that's a simple function of success. If we get success there, then there's likely to be a hub. But again, before we do that, we'll have to make sure that we're very clear about what any local regulations are about establishing ourselves in places like Nigeria, and that covers issues such as how monies can go backwards and forwards and so on. So we'll always be scanning and looking at, what are the opportunities, but also what are the hurdles we have to overcome to establish ourselves in new places. Okay, any more questions, Amy?
No more questions.
Well, we've got no more questions. Well, thank you very much indeed for those of you who have you found the latter part a little bit more audible than the first part. I think we managed to sort out those technical glitches. It's for me now to close the event, and all I can say is that I have to commend the working party for the amount of time and effort they put into these proposals. Change is never easy, and I think it's probably fair to say that if we're still doing something now that we were doing 25 years ago, one must really question whether it is still relevant. And that in planning for the future of the Institute, we are just doing that. It's about the future, not so much about the past. And I always liken things to a little bit like going down the motorway at 70 miles an hour. You've got to be looking ahead, not just at the next car ahead of you, but probably half a mile ahead. And if you spend all your time with your eyes stuck on the rear view mirror, you're going to crash. So from the point of view of the Institute, we want to be looking ahead and planning for our strategies in good time. In terms of the proposal for One CIOB, members still have opportunities to give their feedback. We'll be doing another survey in October, and members should email any comments or questions to one@ciob.org.uk, which we can add to the frequently asked questions, so everybody can hopefully get some benefit from that. I've just had one last question come in. When next are we looking at a session like this and time? Well, I think this is the last webinar of the series, is it, Amy?
Last planned one. The
last planned one. If we feel the need to do another one, we will do one, and we will get a notice out so you can attend it. But the aim is to put this one up on the Institute's YouTube site, so you can refer back to it and be able to play it time and time and time again. We're hoping that all the webinars that we've been doing over the last couple of weeks, are saying the same thing. So I think the next one wouldn't say anything particularly different. So you can go and look at this one on YouTube, on CIOB YouTube. Anyway, we'll continue to monitor member feedback and effectiveness of these changes, not just in the short term, but over the period of time that these changes will be implemented and up and running. And we'll be reporting back to members regularly, either through the annual report, through members forum, of course, which we'll be seeing it at every level, and it'll be quite important that we do that. All right. Well, you've still got questions coming in. I think this has probably took him a long time to type this one. This is from Nick Corrigan. Nick, attracting and retaining new members is clearly a key requirement for the organisation. CPD is one requirement, but having fun. Is one requirement, but having fun. Don't think this was mentioned. Will play a huge part in this. It's part of the strategy. Well, I think the point is that we said that Novus is going to be a key part of the new hubs. We want to keep Novus active, and I think Novus has traditionally been the part of the Institute where we've had fun. I think one has to be very clear that we keep the CPD at one side and some of the social parts at the other side, and there's going to be no restriction on members getting together as members to have some fun. But we've also got to remember that this is about a professional institute trying to do things in a professional way, and I think using our resources most effectively is what we're trying to do. But again, there's going to be no restrictions on the social side. It's just that we're going to be, a little bit sharper, a little bit more professional, a little bit more directed on tackling things that are about the CIOB as a professional body and as a profession. Okay, well, thank you very much indeed. And I think some of us have got homes to go to, and we're going to conclude now, and I'll say thank you very much indeed, and thank you for your time, thank you for all your questions, and thank you for your participation, and good afternoon, good night, good morning, depending where you are. Thank you.
It's good night from him, and it's good night from us.
Good night.